Are you not getting enough hip turn in the golf swing, particularly in the backswing? That seems to be the common problem for a lot of players. So maybe we're seeing a bit too much sway off the ball or more of a hiking motion as opposed to a clear and smooth hip turn. Then there's 2 exercises in this video to help you achieve better turn in the golf swing. I'm Natalie, this is the Pro Fit Golf channel, and thanks for joining me. This first exercise focuses on hip internal rotation, and that is basically this movement for the right hip in the backswing, coming in towards the line of the body here, and then for the left hip in the downswing, coming this way. That's hip internal rotation for the right turning right and the left turning left. And quite commonly, this is the more difficult part of hip turn for people to achieve, normally because we're moving towards the joint, so it feels like there's less space available than when we move away from the joint. So this first exercise involves trying to improve the hip internal rotation element. And I'm going to have my back to you, which is why I've got the mat down on the floor here. So I'm going to film this the other way. So I'm going to have a lie down on my mat just here, so you can see the angles a little bit better. So what we're looking to achieve from this exercise, if I bring my knees straight up over my hips roughly, I'm going to take both of my fists together like this. Now, I've only got little hands, so this is a little bit harder for me than it would be if you have slightly bigger hands and you can create a bigger gap. If you don't want to use the fists in this position, what you can do is use a small little blow-up yoga ball, really small one like a football size, or a rolled-up pillow. So it's just something that's going to sit here between the knees to create a bit of pressure and something to work against. So if you had a little football, the knees would sit a little bit further apart here, which would work nicely, and again, a folded pillow. So both fists together, and they're going to sit directly in between the knees here. I'm going to make sure my toes are upright and that my shins are roughly parallel to the ceiling, so I'm not starting in any of these turned out positions. So nice and smooth, I'm going to breathe in through the nose, rib cage will rise, out through the mouth. Just settle that lower back down to the floor before we start. And then all I'm looking to do is basically push my knees against my fists, which will in turn push both feet out to the side. The hips will get quite tight in the joint here, and that's your internal rotation element. You're then going to come back to the start. So just nice and smooth, pushing against the knees against the fists, I should say. And then slowly back to the start. And roughly you will get around about a 45-degree angle in an ideal world. Now, for some people, we might only be achieving this amount of rotation here. So this is something that will need to be practiced and worked on. And all we're looking for is that the line of the leg stays connected. So I haven't turned only my feet out like this, and I haven't moved away from the fists where I've opened at the hips here. So you've got to keep that connection of the fists just in between the knees, and the knees are pushing gently against the fists to basically roll the hips inwards, which in turn brings the shins outwards. So for this exercise, we should feel the outside of the hips here working a little bit. Nice and smooth with that rotation pushing against the fists, just to bring the legs out to that 45-degree angle. You'll feel a little pinching or some tightness within the hip joint when you've achieved that motion. For this exercise, we'll be looking for something around about 10 to 12 reps, just bringing the reps down a little bit to make sure that the quality of the reps is good and that we don't just razzle through them for about 20 or 30 reps without really thinking about it. Have a practice of this one, it's a lot harder than it looks. For the second exercise, we're going to come down onto the mat, so onto hands and knees, and do some hip circles. And this essentially will create a circular motion for the hip joint, going both internally and externally. So we're getting as much width and rotation as possible. So just using the mat here, I'm going to come down to hands and knees. So in this position, you want to feel pretty stable. So I've got a bit of a grip to the floor here through my hands, bit of a squeeze on the triceps, an awareness of the core. So we've sort of drawed it in a little bit without over tensing. And I've got roughly my knees under my hip joints to begin with. So I'll demonstrate on this outside leg here, so it's a bit easier to see. So the process to this is we make a circular motion this way forwards, and then we just reverse it going in the opposite direction. So my first move with this left knee will be to drive it towards my elbow here, just pausing for a second and holding this position. Then I'm going to come out to the side, a bit like a dog has a wee. Again, just holding it for a split second. Draw this round the back in a bit of a circular motion so it's up and level with my glute here. And then that will come back to the start position. And then all I'm going to do is reverse that. So drive that knee back up towards the glute, open it out slightly, and sweep it all the way around back towards the knee. So that would be 1 rep. So if we're looking at everything in full motion, nice and smooth, towards the elbow, out to the side, round the back, back to the elbow, drive up to the start, open out, sweep all the way around. And that is the full rep. So as I'm making those circular motions, I'm trying to not sway or lose my posture through my upper body too much. So in other words, when I start to move, I'm not looking to collapse through the arms here where I've lost posture, and I'm not looking to sway too much. So with the leg moving and the hip rotating, I don't want to shift too much weight across in the opposite direction. So quite tricky to do, but what that means is that we really isolate this hip in terms of working on its own. The idea of these exercises is to increase hip rotation. So we're trying to work and think about these areas doing a little bit more than they normally would. So just having a look at full rep again. In towards the elbow, out to the side, sweep all the way around the back, meet back to the start again, push back towards the glute, open out, and sweep round nice and wide. And a good thought for these movements is while you're moving the knee, annoying timer, really badly timed, welcome to a CrossFit gym. While you're moving the knee, is imagine that it's moving through dense air. So it's almost like you're pushing it through treacle. So there's a little bit of resistance going on against the body. That will help you work the hip joint even more and really try and create that little bit more extra rotation. I'd be looking for something like 2 to 5 reps on this one. This is a tricky exercise. It's a lot harder than it looks. As you can tell, I'm a little bit out of breath as well. So that was 2 exercises to help loosen off your hip joints and help you in the long run to increase hip turn in the golf swing. If you start to get more hip turn, the chances are you're probably going to hit the golf ball further. You'll definitely hit it more consistently. And with driver, the chances are you're going to get more speed through the body if you load into the hips a little bit better. And then we can start to release and really load that lead leg in that lead hip in the downswing as well. Have a go at both these exercises. It's quality over quantity. They're definitely a lot harder than they look. Thanks again for joining me on this video. Hit the thumbs up button if this made some sense to you and you enjoyed the content in this video. Don't forget to leave some comments in terms of videos you'd like to see in the future, and share this channel with your golfing friends, and we can all watch this video with a brand new topic next week.